Alrighty then. Excuse me. Lesson 1.6. Describing pairs of angles. Describing pairs of angles. 1.6. Describing pairs of angles. So on this we're starting off with, I'm just going right up to there, is on page 48. You're going to put this in your notes. Complementary angles. Complementary angles. It's spelled C-O-M-P-L-E. Complementary. If there was an I, letter I right there, then it's complement. You look nice today, Bill. You look nice today, Lisa. That's a compliment. That's something different. In this context, when that's the letter E, complementary means, sorry, in this case, complementary angles, it's two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Exactly two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Okay? Excuse me. And you have supplementary angles. Supplementary angles would be exactly two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. Not three angles, not four angles, not five angles, not one angle, not zero. It's exactly two angles for each of these. Okay? Two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. And for supplementary, it's two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So for complementary, these two, if that's a right angle, is that little box there. So that means angle 1 plus angle 2 is 90 degrees. Those are complementary. These two angles, 70 degrees and a 20 degree angle, since they add up to 90, those two angles are complementary. Okay. In this case over here, this is a straight line. You can conclude that that's a straight line. Since it's a straight line, that's a straight angle, and that total is going to be 180 degrees. Angle 3 plus angle 4 equals 180 degrees. These two, this angle and this angle, 115 plus 65, that adds up to 180 degrees. That means these two angles are supplementary. Okay. Next one, adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common vertex and side but have no common interior points. They cannot share interior points. So basically, adjacent is another word for next to. It's another word. Adjacent, same as next to. So here's an angle, here's an angle. Do they share a common vertex? Nope. Okay, ooh, here they share a common side, but they don't share a vertex. These share a vertex, but they don't share a common side. Here's something like this. They share a vertex. Can I make it? Can I make this one do that? Oh, there it is. They share a common vertex, so that's the vertex, and they share a common side. These would be adjacent angles. But it says have no common interior points. So if you have angles that look like this, that's good. These are adjacent angles. They share a common vertex. They share a common side. They do not share any interior area. But in this case, if we got something like this, these two angles, they share a common vertex. They share a common side, but they share interior points. So these would not be considered adjacent angles. These two angles right here. That would be okay. This would not be okay. Okay. So adjacent angles, they're next to each other. Okay. So there's a common vertex. So angle 5 and angle 6 are adjacent angles. These two angles, 7 and 8, they're not adjacent. They do not share a common vertex, and they do not share a common side. These here, they're complementary and they're adjacent. These two, these are complementary, but they're not adjacent. These two angles are adjacent and they're supplementary. That's why they're going to be supplementary. In this case, they happen to be supplementary angles, but they're not adjacent. Okay, so that's an example of adjacent angles. Adjacent angles. Here we have, I need to point so I can see, okay. 127 degrees and 37 degrees. Those are adjacent and they share a common side. Okay, these are adjacent angles. They share a side and a vertex. Okay, are these supplementary? Do they add up to 180? No, they do not add up to 180. Okay, We have a different diagram. Okay. Are these two angles complementary? Do they add up to 180? I'm sorry, complementary is 90 degrees. No, these two angles do not add up to 90. These two angles are adjacent, but they're not complementary. What about these two angles, 27 degrees and 53? Are these two angles complementary? Do they add up to 90 degrees? No, they do not add up to 90. These two angles add up to 6, 7, 8, 80 degrees. These two angles add up to 80. So be aware of that. Hey, that looks like it's 90 degrees. Well, apparently the 53 plus 27 does not add up to 90. So this is probably not drawn the best. It should be drawn a little smaller like this. But those two angles are not going to be complementary. These two angles are adjacent. Okay. All right, and then let's go to our page over here. In your notes, you're going to put this in your notebooks. Linear pair. Two adjacent, this is on page 50. This is on page 50. Page 50. Two adjacent angles are a linear pair when their non-common sides are opposite rays. So linear pair, they have to be adjacent and supplementary. So linear pairs are supplementary and adjacent at the same time. Okay, since they're adjacent and they add up to 180, they're going to be a linear pair. Okay, vertical angles, two angles are vertical angles when their sides form two pairs of opposite rays. This is not because it's a vertical line. It's not where they got it from, or horizontal. That's a horizontal line, that's vertical. That's not where they got the word vertical. It's derived from the word vertex. Here's your vertex right there. That's the vertex. Okay, it'd be a lot easier to understand this stuff if they said opposite angles. When lines intersect, the opposite angles are going to be vertical angles. So in this case, angle 3 and angle 5, angle 3 and angle 6, these two angles here, these are vertical angles, and these are opposite angles. Angle 4 and angle 5 are opposite angles. Therefore, they're called vertical angles. Be nice if they said opposite angles. They don't. It's called vertical angles. Okay, there's a difference. And one thing that's on page 50. When you get to page 51, here's some things that you can interpret in a diagram. So from this diagram, what you can conclude, all these points are coplanar. Yes, you can conclude. It's a flat piece of paper. It's a flat plane. You can conclude points A, B, and C are collinear. You can conclude that's a straight line. Point B is between points A and C. You can conclude, this is on page 51, by the way. It's on page 51. Line AC, ray BD, and ray BE intersect at point B. You can make that conclusion. Angle DBE and angle EBC are adjacent angles. These are adjacent angles. And angle ABC is a straight angle. Angle A to B to C, that's a straight angle. Here are some things you cannot conclude from that diagram. You cannot conclude that AB and BC are congruent. No, the only way you can do that is if you had something down here, if you have hash marks like that. So let's zoom in a little bit closer. If we had something like this, if we had same number of hash marks, yeah, now you may conclude AB is congruent to BC because they have the same number of hash marks. But up here, you cannot make that conclusion. Can you say angle DBE is congruent to angle EBC? No. The only way you can do that is if it had, well, this book uses down here, uses one arc and one arc to indicate they're the same. A lot of other books, most books, if they're going to do something like that, they do something like, they'd say if these two angles are going to be congruent, they would do something like this. Same number of hash marks, either one hash mark each or two hash marks each. This angle and this angle are congruent. Okay. This book does use some weird way to describe that, and they use one arc and one arc. It makes it, to me, that's more difficult. In my mind, a lot more books do this. It's easier to understand. Okay. Can you say angle DBA is a right angle? It certainly looks like it, but from this diagram, you cannot make that conclusion. Down here you can, because you have that box. That box indicates angle DBA. This angle is 90 degrees, but that one, you not make that conclusion. Okay, so let's back out of this. And let's go to part of today's assignment. Actually, before we even get to that, here's here's some angles. Which one of these how many pairs of linear angles are there? Or linear pairs? Which ones are linear pairs? Angle 1 and angle 2, are those a linear pair? Boink, yes. Angle 2 and angle 4 are a linear pair. 4 and 3 are a linear pair. 3 and 1 are a linear pair. Is 5 and 7 a linear pair? Yes. What about 7 and 8? Yes, they're a linear pair. What about 8 and 5? No. What about 8 and 6? Yes, linear pair. 5 and 6? Those angles 5 and angle 6 are a linear pair. What about vertical angles? Vertical angles. What about angle 1 and 3? Are those vertical angles? No. 1 and 3 are a linear pair, but they're not vertical. Vertical again. Opposite angles on opposite sides, if they're on opposite sides. 1 and 4 are vertical angles. 2 and 3 are vertical angles. 6 and 7, angle 6 and angle 7 are vertical angles. Angle 5 and angle 8 are vertical angles. 7 and 8 are not vertical angles. Angle 7 and angle 8 would be a linear pair. Okay. Alrighty then, let's go over here. Point. Good. Question number 3. Using this diagram, this is page 52, part of the assignment. Name a pair of adjacent complementary angles. It does not say name a pair of adjacent or complementary. No, no, no. It says name a pair of adjacent complementary angles. That means they have to be adjacent and complementary. So using these diagrams, what is adjacent and complementary? These two, the complementary, they add up to 90. So another way for complementary, complementary, if you do this, sorry, that would work. Let's try stop the earthquake. There we go, 90. And same thing for supplementary. If we said, stuff is all over the place, stop the earthquake. Okay, if I did this, went Nike, 180 for supplementary. So complementary, 2 angles whose sum is 90. Supplementary, 2 angles whose sum is 180. Okay. From this pair here, adjacent and complementary. These are adjacent, but they're not complementary. 90. Ooh, these two are adjacent. Do they add up to 90? No. What about these 2 angles here? Do they add up to 90? 56 and 34, they are adjacent. Do they add up to 90? Yes, they do. Therefore, angle LJM and angle MJN are adjacent and complementary. So there's the answer. Number 6, name a pair of non-adjacent supplementary angles. So this means they are not adjacent. They are supplementary, but they're not adjacent. So supplementary to 2 angles whose sum is 180. Do they add up to 180? No. 180, So 124 plus what is 180? 124 plus what? Has to have a 6 in it, so it looks like it's going to be this. 5, 6, 7, 8, yes. So 56 and 124 add up to 180. So they're supplementary and they are non-adjacent. So question 6, the answer is angle FGH and angle LJM. Boom. Find the angle measure. It says angle 7 is supplement of angle 8. Supplement. Supplement is another derivative of the word supplementary. So if 7 is a supplement of 8, that means angle 7 plus angle 8 equals 180. Okay. Supplement of 8, so that means those two angles add up to 180. And then it says the measure of angle 7 is equal to 190 degrees. So that's 109. So instead of writing angle 7, I can say 109 degrees plus angle 8 equals 180. So, and we have to find the measure of angle 8. So right now we have an algebraic problem. That's why I have algebra prior to this class. So for question number 10, how do you figure out the measure of angle 8? Well, we subtract this on both sides of the equation. Minus 109, minus 109. And that's going to be 71 degrees. And that's angle 8. So angle 8 equals 71 degrees. And I put a box around your answer. You're done. Okay. And then the last question. The last question here. Number 15. Use this figure off on the right. Identify the linear pair or pairs that include angle 1. Angle 1. So here's angle 1. It has to be a linear pair. So remember, a linear pair means they have to be adjacent and add up to 90 degrees. They're adjacent and supplementary. So these are a linear pair. 3 and 4 are a linear pair. 2 and 4 are a linear pair. 1 and 2 are a linear pair. So is angle 1 and angle 2, well, they don't add up to 180, so that won't work. They are adjacent though. 1 and 3, no, they're not adjacent. They don't add up to 1. 1 and 5, ooh, 1 and 5 does work. Ooh, 6 and 7 are a linear pair. Oh, but it says it has to include angle 1. Hey, there's only one answer. It's angle 1 and angle 5. Question 15, that's it. Alrighty then. We're done. Good luck, guys. Hasta la bye-byes.